Hello, Moby.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, very good, thank you. My name is Sviatozar and my sister Radha.
We are from St. Petersburg and vegetarian newspaper in Russia. Very happy to hear from you.
Hey, great, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, for us too. So let's start our session.
What 2-3 words would you choose to describe our world?
Dangerously irrational.
Imagine that you were writing an instruction to action for the world improvement, which everyone will follow. Of what points it will consist?
To make the world a better place, first, of course, is ending animal agriculture. Because when you look at all the consequences of animal agriculture, not just the billions of dead animals, but its role in climate change, in rainforest deforestation, in ocean acidification, in cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, antibiotic resistance, famine. I mean, animal agriculture is not just destroying animal life, but destroying human life. So that's the first thing that I would change. The second thing is to stop using petroleum products. And if you did those two things, the world would be a magically better place.
What is necessary for evolution of consciousness of mankind?
Humans really like to pretend that their actions don't have consequences. You know, people like to smoke and pretend that they're not going to get lung cancer. People like to eat McDonald's and pretend that they're not going to get fat and sick. People like to pretend that they can love animals but also kill them. The simple first evolution is that human beings need to grow up and look at actions having consequences, because you can't keep living the way humans are living and not have incredibly horrifying consequences.
So do you think they pretend or they don't understand?
At this point, I think it's pretend. I think it's that on one hand, human beings are very well educated. We all have access to so much information. But on the other hand, people don't use that information. So people read articles about cigarette smoking, killing, causing emphysema and lung cancer, but they still smoke. People read articles about petroleum products and animal products destroying the planet, but they still support both. So I think it's almost like a cognitive disconnect. And I'm hoping at some point that humans figure that out. Because if they don't, humans will simply, like within 100 years, if humans don't change the way they're living, humanity will begin to cease to exist.
How can people reach agreement and peace, stop wars, stop destroying everything in the rat race for resources and selfish interests?
Well, one thing that I'm always confused by is that people will go to war, or people will, work 80 hours a week on Wall Street, or people will steal or commit other crimes. And the end result is it doesn't make their lives better. So I think there has to be an understanding of what actually contributes to the quality of our life. I look at Donald Trump as a perfect example of someone who has no idea what actually creates happiness. He wants power and he wants attention, but I think he's a deeply miserable person. Humans would just be a lot better off if we had a simpler and better understanding of what actually created happiness.
So what's actually creating happiness?
Usually what creates happiness, well, there's this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to satisfy basic human needs first, which is, food, water, shelter, protection. But then beyond that, for me, what creates happiness is health, spirituality, community, a sort of greater purpose, creativity. Like these are the things where happiness actually comes from, having, a connection with nature. And it's not power, and it's not money, and it's not fame. It's those other things which are actually quite a lot more simple.
Yeah, so true. Probably you had a period in your life, as most vegans did, when you were ready to shout out loudly that meat consumers do wrong. Do you consider now whether it's a correct way of propaganda? of willpower? Or
the important thing about activism is that it be effective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a question that every activist, whether that's an animal rights activist or
mm-hmm.
a climate activist or an education activist or a political activist, like any activist has to ask themselves, is their activism reaching people effectively?
Mm-hmm.
As a vegan activist, I just wanted to yell at people.
Yes.
And yelling at people might have made me feel better, but it wasn't going to change anyone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And activism has to make the world a better place. And sometimes that means using strategies that aren't fun, but are effective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our job as activists to figure that out.
And what is your dynamic message? What is the best way for you to promote that?
It depends who I'm talking to.
Uh-huh.
If I'm talking to someone who loves animals,
mm-hmm.
I would simply ask them, how can you love animals and also be involved in something that causes their death and suffering?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm talking to someone who's interested in health, I might start quoting health statistics. If I'm talking to someone who's interested in climate change, I'll talk about climate change statistics. So it's almost having like a different strategy for every person I meet.
So you have to find a connection.
Yeah, and you have to listen to the other person. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you also have to respect them. Because if we don't respect the people we're talking to, they're not going to respect what we're saying.
I have a question about festival Circle Where. Tell a few words about the idea of festival concept.
Because I've been a vegan now for 29 years and an animal rights activist for 30 some odd years. And what I've seen is that the vegan movement and the animal rights movement is growing very, very quickly. And the idea behind the Circle V Festival is both to celebrate the growth of this movement, but also to further promote it.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's so many ways to promote veganism and to promote the concept of animal rights. You can do that through videos, through photographs, through essays, through music, through art, through restaurants, whatever. But there's something really powerful about letting people know that there's actually a movement around this, creating a culture. Most social change involves strong cultural movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so Circle V is really about just trying to sort of focus that a little bit.
Get it mainstream.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Do you think that everyone can be vegan?
Yeah, very easily. It will get to the point that the majority of the people on the planet, if we survive, the future will be vegan. It just has to be, not just in terms of animal ethics, but in terms of resource allocation and climate change and water use and antibiotic resistance and cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity. There's so many reasons for the world to be vegan. So if we look at human history, over time, people do ultimately behave in smart, rational ways. It just sometimes takes a while, especially when people are very attached to the old way of doing things. And especially if there are big organizations making a lot of money from the old way of doing things.
So we have to do it for the evolution, right? For the surviving.
Yeah, I mean, you simply can't have more than 1 billion people on the planet and feed them animal products. Like it's from a resource perspective, it's not possible.
So do you feel a feedback for what you do? Do you feel that you make a change? Maybe a short story even.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I feel what I do, I'm a part of a much bigger movement. And one of my jobs is to just constantly, every day, wake up and do what I can to promote the cause of animal rights. You know, and whether that's through posting pictures or donating money to animal rights organizations or writing essays or just pretty much doing whatever I can, but to keep doing it. And the thing with activism is we never know whether what we're doing is working or not, but we just keep doing it. You know, and hopefully we learn and hopefully we get better at it. But the goal is just to not stop.
So you don't accept the feedback, you just do what you do.
Oh, I like feedback and I respond to feedback. You know, I don't want to keep doing the same thing if it's not working. But you have to learn how to listen to feedback. You know, sometimes someone's feedback, you know, if someone's feedback might indicate to us that we're doing a bad job, and sometimes it might just indicate that the person we're talking to doesn't want to hear what we're saying. You know, but sometimes it's our job to say what people don't want to hear.
Right. And who is your main figure, your authority in the vegan world?
I mean, there's so many vegan heroes. You know, I think everyone from Leonardo da Vinci to Einstein to Tolstoy to Joaquin Phoenix to Gene Bauer. I don't know if I have one hero. I think, honestly, my heroes, it's every single person who has ever worked for the cause of animal rights. So I can't pick one person. You know, there's Jeremy Bentham, there's just so many people I can think of, but I can't say that one is ever better than the other.
Okay. And who is your favorite composer, classical or modern? Get more personal.
Probably, if I had to pick a favorite, it's an obvious one, but maybe I would go with Bach. Yeah. I mean, I like Debussy, I like many other composers, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that Bach was just the greatest.
And maybe your favorite book, movie, or song?
My favorite movie is Annie Hall by Woody Allen. And if I had to pick a favorite book, I don't know. Probably, I have a book that's a collection of Sufi poetry. It's Kabir and Hafiz and Rumi and all the Sufi poets. And that's
Great.
If I had to pick a favorite book, it would probably be that.
Okay.
What is the main idea of your new album?
Well, the main idea, I don't know if there's one main idea, but it's just supposed to be an energetic, very passionate album. Because at this point in my life, I don't really expect people to buy albums. I don't even expect people to listen to them. I just really like making them. And so once the album's released, to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens.
Yeah, don't get attached.
No, I mean, if it sells, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine.
Okay, tell us, please, how you support yourself physically and emotionally. Do you have time for any sports or spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, my life is, a big part of my life is going outside and exercising and having a spiritual life. So I live in LA, so I go hiking in the mountains every day. And I do yoga and Tai Chi, and I meditate. And yeah, I mean, self-care is such an important part of being alive. And especially if we want to be good activists, we have to take care of ourselves. And I think some people forget that. It's like, so I'm healthy for myself, but I'm also healthy for the animals so that I can hopefully be an activist for a long time.
What is your personal ingredients for the happiness?
Happiness for me is music and nature and having a spiritual life and meditation and a sense of purpose and creativity and community. Everything we do from the moment we're born until the moment we die involves where we put our attention, where we put our focus. And throughout the course of the day, everyone can put their attention on very healthy things or unhealthy things. You can put your attention on joyful things or miserable things. And I think it's really important to sort of cultivate that idea of learning how to put your attention on good things.
Right. Do you like to cook?
Yeah, I don't cook that often, and when I do, it's usually just for myself. There's so many good vegan restaurants in LA, and also I own a vegan restaurant here, so I cook for myself sometimes, but you know, it's sometimes more fun to go out to dinner. I wish I had a good one. I think all of the food that I make that's vegan is quite simple. The only thing I could suggest is, I know I've done that online a few times, so you might even want to go online.
Okay,
and just Google,
sure.
Moby vegan recipe, and I think a few things might come up.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very inspiring for us.
Okay, it was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice